because I started going in there in '92. But I remember. I'll put this right here. Actually, put it in the middle, so it's hidden.
It's hidden anyway, but just leave it in line sight of the receiver.
Line sight?
Yeah, so just put it over there,
Go.
if you don't mind.
Okay.
Because we can't see it anyway, but I always like to
So you're only getting from here up?
Yeah. I always like the signal to be as clean as possible.
Yeah, no, I get it. Look, audio is, as you all know, audio is everything.
Audio drives me crazy if it's
Well,
wrong.
audio, I mean, the thing is that, apparently, like, when you go see movies, like your indie films, everyone's, the picture's got to be great, but...
You're good. I'm just going to slide this up a little bit. Great. Because you got that great voice.
Oh, excellent. Audio's got, I think they've done tests where where they've actually, with test audiences where they'll actually show a movie and they'll show a certain image and people are more willing to, apparently, from what I heard, a friend of mine told me that they've done tests where people are much more willing to forgive a picture that's compromised.
Sure.
An image that's compromised.
Sure.
Than audio, because they can't hear the story, or they can't hear what the characters or what people are saying. So it's kind of interesting, but audio is everything. You need to be able to hear it, man.
Yeah, because what are you going to do if you're trying to watch a movie and you fall out just for a second? If that audio is not good just for a second, you fall out of the story entirely. You could deal with a badly lit shot,
Sure.
easier than you could deal with. I'm sorry, what did he say?
It's unforgivable because if you have to, you're missing part of the story, right?
Right.
Because if the audio, because I've seen some amazing independent films over the years, like the AFI festival or different festivals, and some really just brilliant work. And sometimes, occasionally, not too often these days, but every once in a while, the audio will be a little bit, the quality's not, just a little under snuff. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of, it's frustrating because you're watching something that could be much more powerful.
Right.
If you actually heard everything that you're supposed to hear.
And if you think about it, in the sense of making a big budget film, if audio wasn't important, they wouldn't spend that much of the budget on it because you don't really need it. But yeah, it's super important because if you really want to put people in the environment, the audio is a huge part of that environment,
100%.
Yeah.
It's and really like the best films, and they don't even have to be big budget films, but when you go to a movie and you just hear really crisp dialogue, or you hear that, those tracks are much more, I'm not even gonna say louder, but just they're clearer, like pristine, real, not over the top. It kind of helps kind of lend itself to the story.
Well, it's much easier to get caught.
Not to interrupt.
Yeah.
Can I have a tissue?
Sure.
Because I had a sneezing fit, and
it's easier to get caught into the illusion that you're watching a Man on the Moon marigolds if the music and the sound take you there. Jurassic Park. If you're in a park and you hear the crickets, then it's real.
Yeah, then you're good. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, we'll leave it.
How's the fam, by the way?
The family?
Yeah.
My family?
Yeah.
It's good. That's good. My boys are doing their...
How old are your boys now?
14 and 8.
I can't even believe that.
Yeah. Believe it.
Believe it. I believe it, but I mean, it's
Yeah, it's amazing, and time waits for no one. So it's not like just because you're trying to get something ready that everybody else's life slows down and waits for you. So it's not like you go.
Life's like a fucking locomotive, man.
Yeah,
Jump on.
That's it.
Jump on.
That's
if you don't, you're. It's like
That's it, and there's no excuses to be made. Like, well, it took me this time. Oh, you can. It's your F word. You can say it if you want. We're on the internet, so you can say whatever you want. Nobody's censoring this show. Say whatever you want. We don't have a problem. Just don't say stuff about people and use their names unless it's good stuff. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, no, 100%. I mean, I'm never gonna. Yeah, I'm never. Yeah, I mean, I'm always gonna. I'm only gonna tell good stories about people that that I've worked with or I know.
Right.
I'm not going to say, hey, this guy was a son of a bitch.
This guy's a shithead.
He was a real jerk off.
Yeah. Which would always call to my memory when they would do the Academy Awards. I was wondering why somebody didn't just get up one day and just have a tirade right there on that stage, like, let me tell you who fucked me over all these years, But they're not going to do that because they want to work, right? Because that would definitely be the end of somebody's career if they got up on the Academy Awards stage and just dish dirt on everybody who shit on them
it's interesting you
along the way.
mention that because, Michael Jordan, when he was inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame, it was kind of interesting because, normally, people, people get inducted into various, Hall of Fames or whatever.
Yeah.
It's the greatest basketball player that ever lived. This guy's just iconic. So he's being inducted, and he's giving his speech, and his family's there, and he's talking about, going to North Carolina, and and his coaches and the people that encouraged him and mentored him as a young kid, and helped him to get to where he is. And I remember seeing that there were, he did mention a couple of people from his youth. And we all have people like that.
Sure.
We all remember teachers. We all remember, maybe...
Non-believers, people? Is that what you're talking about?
Thank you. I couldn't have said it any better. Yeah, non-believers or people that were just kind of unpleasant characters.
Mm-hmm.
People that were sort of, non-believers and maybe abusive or just would cut you down. And if my memory serves me correctly, there were a few that he mentioned, like people that did, like so-and-so who didn't believe in me.
Yeah.
So-and-so who didn't believe in me. So it was kind of like, I was watching, I was like, well, good for him, man, because we've all had that.
Right.
We've all had a few people in our lives, who have been that way. But you want to try to focus on the people who are, encouraging.
Now, let's talk about you for a second, because I feel like you have survived in what's notably the toughest territory in the United States is Los Angeles.
Is this good?
Yeah.
Cool.
You all right? You've been here doing your thing for, we don't want to date you, but you've been here for a long time.
Long time.
We'll call it a long time.
Yeah, long time.
In a galaxy far, far away.
In a galaxy far, far away.
And you're doing your thing. Like, you survived in L.A. How have you survived in L.A.?
I've been blessed. I've been surrounded by a lot of great people, and I've had, I'm just blessed. I've had, I've been surrounded by a lot of great people. I've had great mentors. I've had some patches that were not so nice and fun and challenges. I've definitely had my fair share of challenges, but I don't know. I think I've bounced around. I think it's you take your knocks and you kind of keep your eye on the prize, and you try to persevere. And I think that's it's hard. It's hard, but if you gotta love. I tell this to people, like when people talk about when you talk to people in life, they say, oh, you're it's got a tough bit, like Well, any business is really, any business that you want to excel in is tough, right? Nothing's gonna be handed to you. Nothing's gonna be easy. But I always tell people that, that you really gotta believe in yourself, but you also have to love what you do. That's the thing, is that at the end of the day, there really can't be another reason that you do something. There can be, but I just think that if you really love what you do, like if you love music or the business or acting or filmmaking, if you love what you do, it's less of a chore, and it's just fulfilling. It's fulfilling to be able to do it when you get the opportunity to do it, and I think it makes all the other experiences that the side gigs, the whatever people do to underwrite the dream,
mm-hmm.
or whatever you are as an artist, whatever defines you as an artist. I think those things become a little bit more bearable when when you really have a passion for whatever it is. It could be anything. It could be painting. It could be ice skating. Just something that you're good at and you have a passion for. And I think that those things become a little bit more tolerable and bearable.
Now, speaking of which, you just finished a big band album, and do you finance that stuff yourself, or do you have people who believe in you and say, "Hey, man, here's $10,000"?
Well, there's all sorts of way to do things, right? I mean, today, we live in a world of crowdfunding, right, and you GoFundMe pages and things, and so there's a number of ways to go about it, Indiegogo and Kickstarter, things like that. And this is, this is my second album. My first album we did years back, probably about 15, maybe more like 17, 18 years ago now. But I must have been 3 when I did it, right? I was an infant, snapping.
Right. You're like the wheels on the bus go round and round.
Which,
right?
exactly.
Your first album.
That was the song. So yeah, we did that. And I mean, this is this album has been a long time in coming. I mean, it's been something I've been thinking about for years. So I've been kind of squirreling, sort of putting a fund together gradually over years, and finally sort of was able to pull the trigger on it, and kind of in the way that I wanted to, and like so many things, I think obviously there's other gigs that kind of help you get to where you want to be, and figuring different ways to sort of finance things, whether it be a film or a musical project or what have you, an art installation or whatever the endeavor is. But it's something that like I said, it's been percolating for years. I mean, I've been dreaming about doing a big band album, like with 17-piece big band for years. So, and over the last couple of years, I've had the good fortune of meeting like certain people. Started working with a producer a couple years ago, a guy by the name of Stefan Oberhoff, who's a great producer.
That sounds like a producer's name.
Yeah.
Like
doesn't
with
it?
That name, he couldn't really be anything but a producer or a bomber or something. Like, what is that name? That's a cool name.
Yeah, he's an amazing guy, but and it's just one of these things that the longer, and I'm sure you've experienced this in your career, with what you do, and just the business, and you're around long enough, you're kind of on the scene, and I did a gig with him. I mean, we did like a small gig, Hollywood Boulevard on, I think it was on Sunset. It was a place called the Hollywood Studio Bar and Grill, and it was sort of like sort of a jazz club, kind of a cool jazz club for a while, kind of trio set up. And at the last minute, the amazing keyboard player that we had, he couldn't do it because he got like some big award show. Like 2 days before, maybe like a week before, it was like he got called to play like the Grammys. I don't remember what it was, but it was a big deal. So he was like, "Well, I have a great sub for you." So he gave me Stefan's name, and he said, "Well, give him a call. He's great." So I called him up, and
which, by the way, is professionally what you do is you get a sub. Hello, that's a whole nother show.
It's called Get a Sub.
Yes, it's called a sub is what you do.
It's called Get a Sub. God damn it.
Yeah, and don't leave me hanging on the gig.
Right. Yeah. Right. So anyway, I have an interesting story about a sub who did not show.
I'm sure
who did not show.
I'm sure.
And I'll tell you that in a second. But anyway, so I called Stefan up, and anyway, we had a great conversation. He said, "Well, send me the song." He said, "Well, listen, why don't you come over to my studio at my house, and we'll just blow through some tunes." So I went up to Pasadena, and he has this amazing studio, and I went in, and we played, and he played beautifully, and he had everything set. I mean, it was like top shelf, world class audio. I honestly never had a rehearsal like that. And most of the time you have a rehearsal. I've been rehearsing recently at the Union, which is the place where you want to rehearse, because you know, it's state of the art and it's amazing. But you know, back then I wasn't doing that. So he had everything set up, and it was. I was just blown away by this guy. I mean, you know, so this is pre-gig. So I thought, and we just had such a connection, and we played, and you know, then we went through the tunes, and then we did the gig, and the gig was like one of the best gigs I'd ever done, because he was such an amazing arranger and player and kind of spirit, and so we did a few gigs together, and then we didn't see each other for about. I mean, we didn't see each other. You know, then social media took off, and we connected on Facebook, and we'd run into each other. And anyway, so we, you know, so we would connect here and there and bump into each other, and then you know, some years later, I finally decided, like, I'm going to do some singles, like we're going to start recording again, and called him up, and we've, you know, since done 3 songs together. He's produced of mine.
That's awesome.
And you know, with some phenomenal musicians, and he's such an amazing producer. So I've been blessed, you know, just to, you know, work with people like him. Howlett Smith, who's another icon in the industry, who's was sort of my first mentor. Howlett Smith he played at a place in, you know, when I first came to LA, before I started hanging at the Dresden Room, I was going to a place called Bob Burns, and Bob Burns was this sort of iconic jazz club restaurant, like one of those old sort of cocktail lounges. It was on 2nd and Wilshire, and it was there for probably 30, 40 years. And when I first came to town, I started, you know, studying with Howlett. He was the pianist there. And at the time, you know, he's amazing, an amazing songwriter as well. And Larry Gales, you know, there's so many amazing musicians who used to come through there. You know, Larry Gales, legendary bass player. He used to be Thelonious Monk's bass player. Oh, wow. So I was a kid, and I'd go down there on, you know, Tuesday night or a Thursday night, and I'd hang, and I'd, you know, have a drink, and I'd sit there and I'd listen to him, and he'd call me up. So that's how I started cutting my teeth. So he produced my first album. But I mean, the people like him, Howlett, and you know, Stefan, and then most recently, and Marty and Elaine, of course, mentors of mine.
Mentors of mine, Marty and Elaine.
Yes, mentors of ours.
I have to say that I took a lot from Marty and Elaine, because I come from a funk music, soul music background, and so I'd never seen a drummer like Marty. You know, people don't give Marty enough credit on the drums. Marty's an amazing drummer.
Unbelievable, yeah.
Unbelievable
He's a machine.
drummer.
He's a machine.
Yeah,
he really is, yeah.
And I'd never seen anybody play drums like that before. Like, this guy's got 8 arms. And he's talking to you while he's playing.
Yeah, he's got, you know? Yeah, the time is so right there, you know?
It's amazing, amazing.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
So I learned, the first time I walked into the Dresden Room, I learned a new thing about musicians that I had never known or seen or even heard of by watching Marty play. I was like, you mean to tell me there's guys, of course there's guys that can play like that, you know? That's Gene Krupa. I get it. Now I finally get it.
Right.
That's what a drummer is.
Yeah, no.
And he's a bass player. And he's a singer.
Right, outstanding, just outstanding. And, you know, he does all of it. I mean, you know, when we first started going to the Dresden Room, there really was no drummer besides him. So he was on the bass, and then he would play the bass for a little bit, and then he'd sit on the drums, and it was just piano and drums. And then they'd have a guest bassist, right? And then eventually they brought in the trio, and he would just play drums. But it's amazing.
But let's talk about, okay, so here's an elephant in the room thing. Okay, so clearly we're talking about a time in the 90s.
Yeah.
You and I were going to the Dresden Room as separate individuals, but there were a lot of kids like us at that time that were interested
same generation
in music.
Yeah.
Now kids today, are they going to the Dresden Room? Like, I haven't been in LA for 5 years.
Right.
Is the Dresden Room packed on Tuesdays?
You know, it is. It is. It's funny. You know, it's seen its, you know, ebbs and flows over the years, and I've seen the sort of the waves of, you know, come and go over the years. But yeah, you'd be surprised. You go in there on a Tuesday night, and you know, you have a lot of young people. You know, you have a lot of, you know, you'll have your sort of middle-aged crowd, and you'll have your older folks, because it still has that sort of old, you know, the old school appeal. But I think I think that's one of the things that kind of attracts younger people to the Dresden Room, is that you don't find places like that. You just don't find it too often anymore. I mean, in places like that, there aren't too many of them still around. Like, like old establishments. So you think about like the places in LA that are classic, like, Musso and Frank's. And then Musso and Frank's, and then you have Bordner's. Which are classic places.
Yeah.
And you don't have too many places.
El Cid Theater.
The El Cid Theater, which is classic.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, has been there since the 20s, right? Something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Right. So places that have that sort of old school appeal, and I think the music is timeless. Marty and Elaine are legends. You have all the movies that have been shot in there. You have Swingers. You have, the Two Jakes. There's so many. You have. I think they. The crazy thing about the Dresden Room, I'm sure you probably know this, but they shot a Tom Petty video in there.
I didn't know that.
I'm forgetting the name of the tune, but Tom Petty shot one of his big videos in the early, maybe it was the late 80s, at the Dresden Room, and Marty and Elaine are in the video. And,
oh, that's funny.
That's
funny.
Rest in peace, Tom Petty. What a legend. But
now, Patrick, some of your fans, would you say that this is kind of representative of your fan base too? Because you've got young people who dig you, you've got middle-aged people who dig you, and I'm sure you've got to have older people, mature people who dig, because you do standards. And standards never get old, right?
No, they don't. I mean, they're timeless, and it's cool because you'll go to the Dresden Room and you'll sing there, as I've sung there for years, and you look out and you'll see a nice, real mixture of different types of folks and all different ages, and you have folks that come into the Dresden Room that are in their 80s, and you have kids that are in their early 20s, you have kids that are 21, and you have people well into their 80s, and the place is so classic and the music is timeless, and that's one of the things that's kind of cool about the music and the place.
And don't you feel you can do this forever? Like, you're not going to run the risk, like a hip-hop artist, where people might look at you and go, gosh, he's too old to still be doing that music. Right? Because you can always, if worst case scenario, you go to Vegas and you could be 80 years old and you can still do standards,
it's true.
Right?
It's true. I could go to Vegas. It's true. It's funny. I almost did go to Vegas. I came this close to going to Vegas about 10, 12, well, maybe longer than that now. But I did a really cool show that you're probably aware of because you've been in Vegas for a few years now, right?
I've been in Vegas for 5 years.
About 5 years now. Okay, so basically I did a show called Shag with a Twist.
Okay.
And it was a really cool, very sort of a pop art. Shag is a very famous Southern California artist. His real name is Josh Eagle, but he goes by Shag, and he's got a couple of big galleries. Actually, one not far from where we are right now, in West Hollywood. But he's a pop artist, and he sort of depicts like a lot of postmodern sort of images, swanky parties, very Dresden-like scenes.
Okay.
So it's very Dresden-oriented set of art, sort of very colorful, and lots of cocktail parties, postmodern sort of, the Palm Springs sort of lifestyle, the cool sort of mid-50s, through the 60s kind of mod scene.
Sure.
And it's really brilliant stuff. So, he got together with a couple of artists, a choreographer named Cindy Bradley, and a good friend of mine who's a phenomenal composer, Chris Lang, and another amazing composer named Cesar Benitez, and Shag, and they all collaborated, and then they sort of created this musical, which was a murder mystery at a Tupperware party. It was really cool, and there were two singers, well, actually 3 singers originally, but they got to work with, and actually, and one of the cool things, actually, we got to work with just so many great dancers, and we had a really nice run here in LA. We had a run. We have like I think it was a 3-month run at LATC downtown. We got some really nice reviews. We got nominated for like a dance award, and just the idea that I would ever be in a dance musical, and you know, it's kind of boggles my mind. But anyway, my whole job was to just like try to walk around and look cool and not like fall,
right?
You know, or not get like, you know, kicked by one of the dancers, which I actually did one night because I got too close to one of them, and they, you know, they're kicking their legs up, and
yeah.
I was holding the microphone, and her leg came up, and I ate the microphone.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so like I was, you know, like seeing stars. But anyway, but it was a fun musical, and they took it.
Can you just take that from the top? Just start off where you said the last sentence. Yeah, just because of that sound.
Okay, so where do you want me to start from?
The last sentence.
Oh yeah, so she kicked. So I was, you know, there's a finale in Shag with a Twist, which was where everybody comes out and everyone's dancing around. And we had these colorful costumes on, and yeah, like, you know, I was sort of playing the Dean Martin character, and I had. We all had foam wigs, which is kind of funny because I don't have any hair, right. If you didn't notice. And so I had a foam. It was pretty cool. It was just sort of fantastical, right? And so we were doing the finale, and this forgetting the name of the dancer, but she was awesome. And I just was, you know, dancing around, and I just, you know, leaned in, and
wow,
and, you know, she kicked the microphone and hit my mouth, and you know, almost you know, collapsed. But
was that a show goes on moment?
That was a show goes on because I don't think that I actually I don't actually think that I dropped the mic. I might have, but anyway, it was just crazy. But it was a cool show, and there was so many phenomenal dancers, and you know, Chris Lang, and you know, the composer, and Cesar Benitez, and Cindy Bradley from San Pedro City Ballet, and Shag, Josh Yeagle, awesome guy. Check out his art. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so there's some talk about a reunion, possibly, or you know, bringing the show back. But that was fun, and actually, I got to work with the musical director on that. I'm sure you know this woman who's unbelievable. She's a very, very well-known singer in L.A. and abroad, Maya Sykes.
Oh, I've heard of Maya. Yeah, I don't know her personally.
Yeah, so Maya Sykes is an old friend, and she was the...
Is she related to Wanda? The comedian, Wanda Sykes? I think they are. I don't know.
I
don't want to spread that rumor.
You know what? I do not know. I do not know. But Maya, I met Maya on that, and Maya was the... she was like the MD, sort of, you know, sort of... musical director of that, and also one of the singers, and just amazing lady. So you know, and Maya's gone. I mean, she was always, you know, tremendous, but she's gone on to huge things.
Nice.
Sings at Postmodern Jukebox, and you know, I mean,
now speaking of huge phenomenal things, if these kids want to reach you on social media, or even the not so kids, or maybe the parents of the not so kids, even
the parents,
how do we find you?
The grandparents, the great grandparents.
Yes.
Yeah, that's hilarious. You can find me. You can find me at Patrick Barnitt on Instagram.
Nice.
I think. Why am I having trouble remembering?
And
my
it's
Twitter handle?
Barnitt.
Yeah, well, it's really Barnitt. But you know, it's funny. Someone asked me this question last night, and yeah, it's crazy. Someone asked me this question. Said, how do you pronounce your last name? Is it Barnitt or is it Barnett? So I told everybody, I say Barnett, but it really is technically Barnitt. Barnitt, or it's really an English last name, so it's really Barnitt. But in the States, no one stresses the second syllable.
It's so difficult here in the States because somebody I met knew you, and they said, "Do you know Patrick Barnitt?" And I said, "No." And they said, "No, I think you do know him. He's a singer." And I said, "Yeah, well, I know a lot of singers. I don't know Patrick Barnitt." And they said, "No, he's a white guy with a bald head." "You mean Patrick Barnett?" And they said, "Oh, yeah." And so there you have it. So people on the streets are confused. They're walking around.
There's a lot of confused
They're
people
running
on the
into trees and whatnot because they don't know what they're doing.
I got to set it straight. I got to set the record straight. You know what? It's funny. It's one of those things that my mom, my awesome mom, introduces herself as Kathy Barnett, And my grandfather used to introduce himself as Roy Barnett. So I believe, you know, if my memory serves me correctly. So there's a lot of confusion over the name, but anyway, I'm not sure that clears anything up.
Yeah, I think we just now.
I think I just confused everybody. But it's Barnitt. So it's Patrick Barnett on Instagram. It's Patrick Barnett Live, Facebook artist page and the personal page, and on Twitter I just think it's my name.
And that is what's up. Hey man, it's been the Ace Michael Show. We talked about Patrick Barnett's music, but guess what? He does films too. That's a whole nother show. So we're gonna have him back to talk about that. If you ever want to be on the show, do that. You can be on the show. All you do is email us. You can email us. Our new email is blastpopmedia@yahoo.com. You can go to blastpopmedia.com. That's the producers of our show. Or you can call, whatever you want to do. And that way you can speak your mind, voice your opinion, ideas, convictions, beliefs, testimony. You can do all that on the show. And it's my good friend, Patrick Barnett, who's been with us today. Make sure you check out what he's doing because he's a good guy and he's very talented. And aside from that, you know what I say at the end of every show? I still mean it to this day. Live the life you love. Love the life you live. Thank you.